They finally discovered why Earth has no natural disasters in their records. Commander Lark Ventus stared out the viewport of the research vessel Celestial Archive as the blue-green marble of Earth grew larger on the main display. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation among his species, while his scaled fingers tapped against the polished surface of his data terminal. 37 years of distinguished service to the Galactic Academic Council, he muttered to no one in particular, and they send me to investigate what is clearly a filing error. Behind him, the ship's navigation officer, a lanky Procyon with silvery fur, cleared her throat. "We'll achieve standard orbit in approximately 23 minutes, Commander." "Wonderful," Lark replied, not bothering to hide the sarcasm dripping from his voice. Another thrilling day in the life of the galaxy's most overqualified data correction specialist. He pulled up the mission briefing on his terminal again, scanning the anomalous information that had prompted this expedition. Earth classified as a Class 9 death world, due to its extreme gravity, atmospheric composition, and biological hazards, somehow had 0 recorded natural disasters in the galactic database. None. Not a single planetary catastrophe in its multi-billion-year history. "It's preposterous," Lark said, gesturing at the screen. "A world teeming with life, orbiting an unstable yellow star with active tectonic plates and variable weather patterns. And we're supposed to believe it's never experienced a natural disaster?" His research assistant, Quill, a newer addition to his team with bronze skin that seemed to shimmer under the ship's lights, offered a diplomatic response. "That's why we're here, sir, to investigate the anomaly." "The anomaly is in our record-keeping, not in the planet's history," Lark snapped, pushing himself away from the terminal. "Some data entry clerk probably forgot to transfer the disaster records when we upgraded the galactic database last century." He stood and stretched his limbs, the green patterns along his forearms glowing slightly with his irritation. Lark had built his reputation studying the most catastrophic planetary events in the galaxy. He'd documented supervolcano eruptions on Rigel 6, analyzed tsunami patterns on the water world of Hydrus Prime, and even witnessed the spectacular death of a gas giant in the Carina Nebula. His 3-volume encyclopedia Catastrophes Across the Cosmos was standard reading in advanced xenogeology courses. And now, here he was, being sent to investigate what amounted to a clerical error. "Sir," Quill interrupted his brooding, "the preliminary scans are showing some interesting readings. A planet's geological activity is significant." "Of course it is," Lark replied, moving to examine the scan results. "That's what makes this whole mission so absurd. A planet with this level of tectonic activity should have thousands of earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, you name it." The commander sighed heavily, straightening his formal academic robes. "Well, I suppose we might as well be thorough. Prepare the landing shuttle. I want a ground team ready in 15 minutes. Let's get this nonsense sorted out quickly so I can get back to my actual research." As he gathered his equipment, Lark couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Death worlds were notorious for their extreme conditions. Why would Earth, with all its apparent hazards, have no record of natural disasters? Probably just another example of bureaucratic incompetence, he grumbled, heading toward the shuttle bay. "But I suppose if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself." Little did Commander Lark Ventus know that this routine mission to correct a perceived data error would shake the foundations of galactic science and his own understanding of what it meant to survive on a hostile world. The landing shuttle touched down with a soft hiss on the designated first contact pad outside the United Earth Science Directorate headquarters. Commander Lark Ventus adjusted his environmental suit, though Earth's atmosphere had been deemed safe for his species, technically safe, at least. The gravity felt oppressive, nearly 1.3 times what he was accustomed to on his homeworld. "Remind me again why I didn't send a drone," Lark muttered as the shuttle door slid open. Beside him, Tella Bright, the expedition's xenobiologist, checked readings on her wrist scanner. Her translucent skin pulsed with excited blue patterns, a physiological response her species couldn't hide when encountering new biological environments. Because, she said cheerfully, the Council insisted on a personal diplomatic approach with potential new members of the Galactic Alliance. And because drones can't sign off on database corrections, added Pax Nimble, the junior researcher who had been practically bouncing with excitement since they entered Earth's solar system. His copper-colored antennae twitched forward, a sign of eagerness among his kind. Lark sighed. Let's get this over with. A small delegation of humans waited on the landing pad. At the forefront stood a tall woman with dark skin and short silver hair, wearing a crisp blue uniform adorned with what Lark assumed were medals or insignia of some sort. "Welcome to Earth," she said, offering a slight bow. "I'm Director Naomi Foster, head of the Earth Science Directorate. We're honored to host representatives from the Galactic Alliance." Lark performed the formal greeting gesture of his people, a slight tilt of the head, combined with a specific pattern of eye blinks. "Commander Lark Ventus, Galactic Alliance Science Division, specializing in planetary catastrophes and extinction-level events. These are my colleagues, xenobiologist Tella Bright and junior researcher Pax Nimble." Director Foster nodded. "Pleased to meet you all. Though I must admit, we were surprised by your specific area of interest. Our diplomatic briefing mentioned you wanted to discuss our natural disaster records. Or rather, the curious absence of them," Lark said, activating his portable terminal. "According to the Galactic Database, your planet has experienced 0 natural disasters in its entire history. Given Earth's classification as a Class 9 death world, this anomaly requires investigation." Foster's brow furrowed in apparent confusion. 0 natural disasters? That can't be right. We have thousands of years of documented natural disasters and geological evidence of millions more. Tella stepped forward, her skin flashing with patterns of scientific curiosity. "Perhaps there's a terminological misunderstanding. Could you provide examples of what you consider natural disasters?" "Of course," Foster replied. "Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, floods, wildfires, blizzards, tornadoes. Just last month, we had a magnitude 7.2 earthquake in the Pacific region. And there's currently a Category 4 hurricane approaching the eastern seaboard." The alien research team exchanged glances. Pax's antennae flattened against his head, a gesture of shock. "I'm sorry," he blurted out. "You're saying a major tectonic event and a catastrophic storm system are happening right now? As we speak?" Director Foster nodded casually. "Yes, standard events for this time of year." "Why?" Why? Tella had already pulled out her advanced scanner, adjusting its settings to analyze local geological and atmospheric conditions. Preliminary scans confirm the human's claims. There are multiple active fault lines experiencing movement, several volcanic systems showing activity, and significant atmospheric disturbances in multiple regions. "So you're saying your planet tries to kill you regularly? And nobody thought to mention this?" Pax asked, his voice rising an octave in disbelief. Director Foster looked genuinely perplexed. "I'm not sure I understand. These are just normal Earth conditions. Surely the Alliance has encountered planets with active geological and meteorological systems before." Lark's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as the implications began to dawn on him. "Director Foster, I believe we have much to discuss. Is there somewhere we could review your disaster records in detail?" "Of course," she said, gesturing toward the main building. "We've prepared the Global Disaster Archive for your review. Though I must warn you, it's quite extensive." Lark exchanged glances with his team members. What had seemed like a simple mission to correct a database error was quickly becoming something much more interesting and potentially much more significant for galactic science. The Global Disaster Archive turned out to be an entire wing of the Earth Science Directorate building. Wall-to-wall holographic displays showed real-time monitoring of tectonic activity, weather patterns, volcanic eruptions, and a dozen other potentially hazardous planetary systems. Humans in various colored uniforms moved efficiently between stations, occasionally calling out updates or making adjustments to monitoring equipment. Commander Lark Ventus stood in the center of the main monitoring room, all four of his eyes wide open in a rare display of complete astonishment. "This is unprecedented," he mumbled, watching as a technician casually updated the status of 3 active volcanoes. Director Foster stood beside him, arms crossed. "I'm still not clear on what exactly surprises you, Commander. This is standard monitoring protocol for most developed planets, isn't it?" Tella approached them, her translucent skin now pulsing with excited patterns that seemed almost frantic. "Commander, I think I understand the discrepancy. I've been comparing our classification parameters with the human's disaster database." Pax joined them, carrying a stack of what the humans called paper reports, an archaic but apparently still utilized form of information storage. "The issue is terminological," Tella continued. "What humans classify as natural disasters don't meet the galactic database threshold for the same designation." Lark frowned. "Explain." "In our classification system," Tella said, "a natural disaster is defined as an event that causes significant planetary alteration or mass extinction. By the Alliance standard, a natural disaster must affect at least 30% of a planet's surface or result in the extinction of at least 25% of existing species." Director Foster's eyebrows shot up. "That's your threshold for a natural disaster? No wonder you thought we didn't have any." "So what you're telling me," Lark said slowly, "is that all these events humans are monitoring, these earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, are classified in our system as minor environmental fluctuations," Tella finished. "Barely worth recording in the planetary data summaries." Pax looked up from the reports he'd been reviewing. "But Commander, according to these historical records, Earth has experienced what they call mass extinction events. 5 major ones, in fact." "5?" Lark's voice rose sharply. "5 planetary extinction events?" "Yes," Director Foster confirmed with a casual nod. "The most recent was about 66 million years ago, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. An asteroid impact wiped out about 75% of species, including most of the large reptiles that dominated the planet at the time." The room fell silent as the 3 aliens stared at her. "And life continued?" Lark finally asked. "Of course," Foster replied. "Life always finds a way on Earth. After each extinction event, new species evolve to fill the ecological niches. That's how mammals and eventually humans came to be dominant." Lark turned to Pax. "Check the galactic database. How is Earth's asteroid impact classified?" Pax quickly consulted his terminal. "It's listed as a significant astronomical interaction but not as a natural disaster," because he paused, reading further. "Because planetary biodiversity recovered within a relatively short time frame of 10 million years." 10 million years is relatively short?" Foster asked incredulously. "By galactic standards, yes," Lark replied, beginning to understand. "Most planets that experience an extinction event of that magnitude never recover. The few that do typically require hundreds of millions of years for new life to evolve." Tella's skin had settled into a pattern that indicated deep thought. "Director Foster, your tsunami early warning system, how much advance notice does it provide?" "Depends on the cause and location," Foster answered. "Usually between 20 minutes and 3 hours. "And that's sufficient?" Tella asked. Foster smiled. "It's enough time to evacuate coastal areas, yes." Lark was scrolling through his terminal, reassessing Earth's data with this new context. "According to our records, most spacefaring civilizations evolved on planets with minimal geological activity and stable weather patterns. Even minor tectonic shifts often result in the collapse of their early civilizations." "You're saying most species don't have to deal with their planet actively trying to kill them?" Foster asked. Precisely, Lark confirmed. The database error wasn't missing disasters. It was categorizing Earth's regular catastrophes as minor fluctuations because, remarkably, they don't result in planetary-scale extinction. Your species simply adapts to them. Foster said thoughtfully. I guess we never considered that not having your planet regularly try to wipe you out might be the norm. She grinned suddenly. Wait until I tell the hurricane response team they've been dealing with minor environmental fluctuations all these years. The briefing room on the 32nd floor of the Earth Science Directorate building offered a spectacular view of the city skyline. Commander Lark Ventus stood by the window, still trying to process the implications of what they'd learned about Earth's relationship with natural disasters. Tella was analyzing data on her portable terminal, while Pax had been enthusiastically questioning one of the human geologists about something called plate tectonics. Director Foster entered the room, followed by several staff members carrying refreshments. I thought you might enjoy some Earth beverages while we... The floor beneath them suddenly trembled, then shook, then began to vibrate with increasing intensity. Earthquake, Foster announced calmly, checking her wrist device. Magnitude 5.8, epicenter about 30 kilometers offshore. Nothing to worry about. The alien researchers froze in place as the building swayed noticeably. Lights flickered briefly, and a low rumbling sound filled the air. A few items slid off the table. Lark gripped the window frame, his 4 eyes wide with alarm. The building is moving. Of course it is, Foster replied matter-of-factly. It's designed to. Flexible foundation, dampening systems, counterweights in the upper floors. All standard earthquake countermeasures for structures taller than 20 stories. Around them, human staff members had calmly moved to doorways or underneath sturdy tables. No one screamed. No one ran. A few were even continuing their work on portable devices, seemingly unbothered by the fact that the planet was actively trying to shake them to death. After approximately 40 seconds, the shaking subsided. There we go, Foster said, as if commenting on a brief rain shower. Everyone okay? The alien researchers remained frozen in their positions. You're all safe, Foster assured them. Our buildings are designed to withstand much stronger quakes than that. Your buildings are designed to withstand the planet attempting to destroy them? Pax asked, his antennae still flattened against his head in alarm. Of course, Foster replied. We have entire engineering disciplines dedicated to disaster-resistant construction. Earthquake engineering, hurricane-resistant architecture, flood mitigation systems, fireproof materials, it's a major field of study. A human staff member approached with a tablet. Director, preliminary reports indicate no major damage. Tsunami warning system shows no significant wave activity. Thank you, Marcus, Foster said, taking the tablet and reviewing it briefly before handing it back. Standard post-quake protocol, please. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied, exiting the room. Lark had finally recovered enough to move away from the window. You have protocols for after these events? Naturally, Foster said. Structural assessments, infrastructure checks, community welfare verification. It's all quite routine. Routine, Lark repeated, as if testing the word. You've turned your planet's murderous tendencies into a science project? Foster laughed. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. We can't stop earthquakes or hurricanes, so we learn to predict them, prepare for them, and minimize their impact. Tella had been unusually quiet, her skin displaying patterns that indicated intense analysis. Director Foster, how many scientific fields on Earth are dedicated to natural disaster study and mitigation? Foster thought for a moment. Dozens at least. Seismology, volcanology, meteorology, hydrology, fire ecology, plus all the engineering disciplines I mentioned earlier, emergency management systems, disaster psychology. Disaster psychology? Pax interrupted. You study the mental effects of living on a planet that regularly tries to destroy you? Of course, Foster said. Understanding how people respond to crisis situations helps us design better emergency protocols and recovery programs. Tella's skin flashed with a pattern that indicated a significant insight. Commander, I believe I understand now. Humans didn't just survive on this death world, they evolved in direct response to its hazards. She approached the display screen and pulled up a timeline of human development alongside major disaster events. Look at this pattern. Human advancement often accelerated following major catastrophes. Their entire neurological and physiological makeup has been shaped by the constant need to adapt to changing and hazardous conditions. Is that unusual? Foster asked. Lark nodded slowly. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds with stable conditions. Minor environmental changes often triggered extinction rather than adaptation. That's why the Galactic Alliance has such strict planetary safety protocols. Which explains why you classify our routine disasters as minor fluctuations, Foster concluded. For species that didn't evolve alongside such events, even a moderate earthquake might cause civilization collapse. Precisely, Tella said, her skin pulsing with excited patterns. Humans aren't just surviving on a death world, you're thriving because of it. Your adaptability, your crisis response systems, your scientific approach to disaster management, these are all evolutionary advantages developed specifically because your planet regularly tries to kill you. Lark was staring out the window again, but this time with a new perspective. Below, he could see humans going about their business, seemingly unconcerned that mere minutes ago the ground beneath them had violently shaken. Director Foster, he said quietly, I believe I owe you an apology. I came here expecting to correct a simple database error. Instead, I've discovered an entirely new paradigm for species development and planetary adaptation. Foster smiled. No apology necessary, Commander. Though I admit it's somewhat amusing to learn that what we consider Tuesday afternoon emergency drills would qualify as extinction-level events on other worlds. 3 days after the earthquake, Commander Lark Ventus stood in the Earth Science Directorate's Communications Center, facing the shimmering holographic projections of the 7 members of the Galactic Council. Despite the advanced technology, he could sense their unease even across the vast distance of space. To summarize my findings, Lark concluded, after a detailed presentation, Earth doesn't lack natural disasters. Rather, what humans consider routine planetary activity falls below our classification threshold for disaster events. Meanwhile, events that would qualify as disasters by our standards have occurred multiple times in Earth's history, but remarkably, life persisted and adapted each time. Counselor Vex, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate hovering vessel, pulsed with agitation. Commander Ventus, if I understand correctly, you're telling us that humans live on a planet with continuous tectonic activity, extreme weather phenomena, and periodic extinction events, and they consider this normal. Not just normal, High Counselor, Lark replied. They've built their entire civilization around it. Director Foster, who stood beside him, nodded in confirmation. This is deeply concerning, said Counselor Trin, whose crystalline form shimmered with distress patterns. The Alliance protocols are clear regarding death worlds. We should immediately begin evacuation planning for the human population. There are several stable planets in neighboring systems that could. Foster's sudden burst of laughter interrupted the counselor mid-sentence. All 7 council members shifted their attention to her, their expressions ranging from confusion to offense. I apologize for the interruption, Foster said, composing herself. But the suggestion that humans would abandon Earth is, well, it's quite amusing from our perspective. You find planetary evacuation amusing? Asked Counselor Zell, the eldest member of the council, his feathered crest rising in surprise. With all due respect, counselors, Foster explained, Earth isn't just our home. It's part of our identity. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, It occasionally tries to kill us. But it's our world, and we've spent thousands of years learning to live with its quirks. Pax stepped forward, antennae twitching nervously at addressing such august company. If I may, honorable counselors, my research on human disaster response has revealed something quite remarkable. Humans have created global organizations specifically dedicated to disaster prediction, management, and recovery. When major events occur, they implement coordinated responses across political boundaries. They've turned potential catastrophes into opportunities for cooperation. Indeed, Tella added, her skin displaying formal presentation patterns. What's particularly fascinating is that humans routinely send aid to regions affected by disasters, even when those regions are governed by political rivals. They appear to recognize that planetary threats transcend their territorial disputes. Counselor Zell's feathered crest lowered slightly in thought. In the Alliance's 12,000-year history, we've documented 47 cases of emerging civilizations facing significant planetary instability. In 46 of those cases, the species either perished or required emergency evacuation to more stable worlds. And the 47th? Lark asked. A species that developed limited space travel and relocated themselves, Zell replied. But never before have we encountered a species that simply adapted to catastrophic conditions. That's because you're thinking about it wrong, Foster interjected. Earth isn't a death world to us, it's just Earth. The council members exchanged glances, their various biological and mechanical expressions conveying a mixture of horror and fascination. Director Foster, High Counselor Vex finally said, "Am I correct in understanding that your species experiences what we would consider extinction-level geological events as a matter of routine? And yet you've built a technological civilization advanced enough to achieve spaceflight?" "That's correct," Foster replied, "though I would argue that we achieve spaceflight not despite Earth's challenges, but because of them. Crisis drives innovation. Survival requires creativity. Earth has been our toughest teacher, but also our greatest advantage." Lark noticed the shift in the council's demeanor. What had begun as concern was transforming into something that looked remarkably like respect. "Commander Ventus," Counselor Trin said, "it appears your simple data correction mission has revealed something far more significant than we anticipated." "Indeed, Counselor," Lark replied, his four eyes blinking in sequence no longer in irritation, but in acknowledgement of a profound discovery. "I believe we may need to reconsider our understanding of species development and planetary adaptation. The human experience suggests that adversity, rather than stability, might be a catalyst for certain evolutionary advantages." The council chamber fell silent as the implications of this notion rippled through the gathered representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilization species that had, until now, considered themselves the pinnacle of evolutionary success precisely because they had avoided the kind of planetary challenges that humans faced every day. After the council transmission ended, Director Foster turned to Commander Lark with a knowing look. "So, Commander, care to tell me the real reason for your visit to Earth? I doubt the Galactic Council sends senior researchers across the galaxy just to correct database errors." Lark's scales shifted color slightly, the equivalent of a blush among his species. His four eyes blinked in rapid succession. "You're quite perceptive, Director Foster," he admitted. The alleged database discrepancy was merely a convenient pretext. "I suspected as much," Foster said, crossing her arms. "So what's the actual purpose of your mission?" Lark sighed, a whistling sound through his specialized breathing apparatus. "Earth has been under observation for some time. The Council is assessing humanity's readiness for formal membership in the Galactic Alliance." Pax looked surprised. "Commander, was I not briefed on the full mission parameters?" "None of you were," Lark replied. "This assessment was meant to be unbiased." "And what exactly is the Council concerned about?" Foster asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. "Your species' history of conflict, Lark stated plainly. The Council has observed that humans appear unusually aggressive compared to most spacefaring civilizations. Your historical records show constant warfare, territorial disputes, and violent competition for resources. The Council worried that such tendencies might make humans incompatible with the peaceful cooperation required for Alliance membership. Foster nodded slowly. So they sent a disaster specialist to what? Find a correlation between our hostile planet and our supposedly hostile nature. Essentially, yes, Lark confirmed. But what I found is something far more nuanced and significant. He activated the holographic display, bringing up images of human disaster response teams working together after various catastrophes. Humans don't fight because they're innately violent, Lark declared, his voice rising with uncharacteristic passion. They fight because they've had to fight their own planet to survive. He gestured at the images. Look at this. When faced with planetary threats, humans display remarkable capacity for cooperation, self-sacrifice, and coordinated action. The same tenacity that helped you survive earthquakes and hurricanes has been applied to other challenges. Tella stepped forward, her skin pulsing with academic excitement. Commander is correct. I've compiled data comparing human adaptability in crisis situations to all known spacefaring species. She brought up a comparative chart on the display. The results are statistically significant. Humans demonstrate adaptability metrics that exceed Alliance averages by 327%. It's not just adaptability, Pax added, his antennae quivering with enthusiasm. It's creativity under pressure. Most Alliance species evolved in environments where careful, methodical approaches ensured survival. Humans evolved in an environment where rapid response to unexpected threats was essential. Foster watched them with growing amusement. So you're saying our reputation for being troublemakers might actually be our greatest asset? Precisely, Lark replied. What the Council perceives as aggression is actually an evolutionary adaptation to living on a planet that regularly tries to kill you. When faced with existential threats, whether geological, meteorological, or otherwise, humans don't panic or surrender. You innovate, you cooperate, you overcome. He turned to face Foster directly. The Alliance doesn't need another species that evolved in safety and stability. We have hundreds of those. What the galaxy needs is a species that knows how to face apocalyptic conditions and still find a way to not just survive, but thrive. Commander's log, expedition date 42.7, final entry. The Galactic Council has officially granted Earth provisional membership in the Alliance, with full status pending a 5-year observation period. I can't help but appreciate the irony. We came to investigate what we thought was a clerical error and ended up discovering perhaps the most uniquely qualified species in the galaxy for interstellar cooperation. Humans, it turns out, aren't the violent warmongers we feared, but rather the galaxy's ultimate survivors, a species forged in the crucible of continuous planetary upheaval. Their capacity to face catastrophe with ingenuity and cooperation may prove invaluable as the Alliance faces its own looming crises. Who would have thought that a planet trying to kill its inhabitants would be the perfect training ground for galactic citizenship? Not me, certainly, but I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. Usually. Lark ended his recording and turned to watch the activity on the beach below. Just 2 days after a hurricane had devastated this coastal community, humans were already rebuilding. Teams moved with practiced efficiency, clearing debris, restoring power lines, reinforcing damaged structures. Pax approached, his copper antennae twitching with excitement. Commander, the Council has approved my proposal for a new galactic classification, disaster-adapted sapient species. Earth will be the first officially categorized as such, but we've identified 12 other potential candidates for further study. Well done, Lark said. Though I suspect none will quite match humanity's particular brand of stubborn resilience. Agreed, Tella joined them, her skin displaying patterns of scholarly satisfaction. The data from this expedition will revolutionize our understanding of evolutionary pathways. I've already received requests from 17 research institutions to access our findings. Director Foster appeared behind them, wearing what Lark had come to recognize as her "I have an idea you won't like" expression. "Since you're all staying for another week to complete your research," she said with a suspiciously innocent smile, "I've arranged for you to participate in our monthly disaster preparedness drills." "Drills?" Lark asked cautiously. "Nothing too strenuous," Foster assured him, though her grin suggested otherwise. "Just some basic tsunami evacuation protocols, earthquake response training, and perhaps a simulated volcanic eruption scenario." Lark's 4 eyes blinked in alarm. "Simulated, you said?" "Mostly," Foster replied with a wink. "Consider it part of your cultural exchange. After all, if you want to understand humans, you need to experience a little bit of what shaped us." As Foster walked away, Lark turned back to the rebuilding efforts below. Humans, he reflected, had turned potential extinction into an art form. They didn't just survive their death world, they embraced it, studied it, and ultimately conquered it without ever taming it. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest strength, not just the ability to endure catastrophe, but to look planetary destruction in the face and say, "Nice try, but we'll be ready next time." And somehow, against all galactic logic, they always were.